Is it working? Yeah? Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished guests, I really would like to welcome you warmly to this session about impact investing. And as you have seen, we're starting a little bit later because we really wanted you to enjoy a wonderful lunch. So I hope you're fully prepared at this moment. And we also hope that some other people still taking and enjoying the lunch will come later as well. So, as already announced, my name is Machteld Ooijens, and I have the pleasure to moderate this session in the next 45 minutes. This session, as said, will be about impact investing. So what we really try to do today in this session is to take a deep dive into the impact investing world in Bangladesh. We would like to shed a little bit of light on the perspective of investors, as I have here on my side, and possibly also here in the audience. The perspective of impact investors in Bangladesh, and also see what is needed, more needed, to open up this whole vibrant impact investing industry. I have my guest speakers, my panelists here on my left, right, so I will introduce them later on to you. These gentlemen, they're going to be talking about their experiences they have in Bangladesh, the experience they have with impact investing, but also they would like to talk about how to unlock more private capital to this world of impact investing, how to invest with impact in order to support the Bangladeshi economy and also achieve the SDGs by 2030. And also how to see how we can increase the number of more impact enterprises with a viable business model. So that's what we're about to do in this session. And I think, before I introduce my panelists, I think it's really nice for them to also know a little bit more about who's in the audience today, and also gives us a bit of an impression of who we're talking to. So we're not going to do this with a high-tech way, just the old-fashioned way by, you know, raising hand. There's a lot of light here, so I'll just walk on this catwalk. It's the first time I'm doing that, so I'm really lucky. Just to know, who else in this audience is already investing, either as an impact investor or as an investor in a more general sense in Bangladesh? Just raise your hands if you're doing so. There are none. Okay, so gentlemen, you really have a big task in front of you. Then maybe just to see, are there any representatives of companies from Bangladesh here in the audience? Yeah, I see Mr. Tawhid Salam. Welcome. Some other? No. And representatives of companies here in the Netherlands or in Europe sourcing from Bangladesh? Okay, there we have a little bit more. Representatives from governmental side, from governmental agencies? Here. I think also in the back, isn't it? From, yeah, that's because we know each other. And then from NGOs or foundations? Oh, that's very interesting. There are a couple of more. Well, great. Thank you so much for being here, and really good to have like a mixed audience. Now, before we continue, and before we gonna give, or I'm gonna give the floor to my panelists, I thought it really nice to, if we talk about impact investment, to show you an example, a good practice on video, an inspirational case, which really tells the story in itself. So I hope the technicians can help me out now, because we would like to show you a story of the company in Bangladesh called Classical Handmade Products, CHP. And after this video, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So I hope the technicians are ready.
Sustainability cultivates communities through connectivity. Native water hyacinths are resilient wastes that persistently grow in water bodies across Bangladesh. Years of experimentation have led us to develop an answer that can help communities transform them into treasure. Local source and treat water hyacinths, developing and designing them into handcrafted products. An answer to the future of sustainable businesses that encourages clean environmental practices and ethnic innovation. Our business is a solution for sustainability that gives dignity back to people, profiting people at every stage of the chain. Meet the next generation of eco-friendly, sustainable handcrafts made in Bangladesh. Our values are dignity, sustainability, authenticity, collaboration, and community. Artisans are trained in processes developed by industry experts, introducing them to a new opportunity to become entrepreneurs and grow their skills. A process made to perfection, a human touch that is farmed and fabricated, connecting us through love, a beautiful craft that heals. Classical homemade products, Bangladesh.
Yeah, maybe a warm applause for this wonderful story. What you did not see in this video, because it's a very short video, also for sake of time, but is that this company was founded by Mr. Tauhid Salam, who's also sitting here in the audience. He started in the north of the country in 2008, actually with a very small group of people, and is now already employing almost 4,000 workers. Many of them are women workers, and paying a lot of and good attention also to the working conditions for these workers. He's exporting to many different countries, especially to Spain, to Germany, to the US, to Sweden, and there CHP is actually partnering with two impact investors, actually two Dutch impact investors. So he has benefited himself from receiving impact investments in Bangladesh. Now, the entrepreneur, as I said, and unfortunately there's not that much more time to tell about your wonderful company, Tauhid, but he is in our midst. So if you're interested to hear more about his story, about his journey, also see his amazing products, then please go look for him yourself. So let me now take a seat and go to our panelists, because that's when the Q&A session actually starts. And let me introduce my panelists to you. Actually, before really going, this round for the three people sitting next to me and telling where they come from, who they are, and who they represent, I would like to start with the person in the middle, who is Jaap-Jan Verboom. And we thought it would be good to, before doing the whole Q&A session, to also take some time to give you an introduction about the world of impact investing in Bangladesh. So we will start with an introduction about impact investing, and after that I will announce also who the two other gentlemen are, and they will also represent themselves. Let me tell you about Jaap-Jan Verboom. He's the founder and director of Truvalu Impact Investments, and he started this company 8 years ago. He has already offices in 4 different countries, and one of the countries is Bangladesh, where a very dedicated and professional team is working for Truvalu. Truvalu offers SMEs capital, usually mainly equity capital and loans, but besides that they also offer business development services, access to markets, access to technology, and a lot of different coaching. So with this very interesting team in Bangladesh, you already have like 8 years of experience now, which you are about to share. So please, Jaap-Jan Verboom, if you can lead us or introduce us a little bit more to the world of impact investing. I'll give you 5 minutes, so because it's really sharp time management this time. And after that, I will introduce the other two. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Machteld, and I would gladly like to do that. 5 minutes is very short, so let me try to keep it brief as well by just sharing a bit of our own story of how we started in Bangladesh. Maybe to start with, let me give you a bit of a rough painting of the financial landscape in Bangladesh. There are many actors, all in their own segment. There's the banks, obviously, and other financial institutions, but they mainly finance larger corporations. And if they would finance SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, then it's mainly in working capital finance, not so much in the capital expansion. Then, obviously, there are numerous NGOs and also microfinance institutions that do the micro-enterprises and the cottage financing. A large group to address, very important, but not so much serving, again, the SMEs. There are hardly any private equity and venture capitalist firms in Bangladesh active at the moment. There are a few, mostly very commercial, very little focus on impact. And so that is why we felt already 8 years ago that there was a clear niche, so to say, for us to start impact investing in SMEs, in small and medium-sized enterprises, with a clear focus on impact, on a positive, measurable change. So why did we choose Bangladesh? As Machteld said, there are other offices, we have other offices in other countries as well. So why did we choose Bangladesh? A couple of reasons. I share them with you because I think they're also valid for other investors. First of all, Bangladesh is showing a strong and steady economic growth, as we also heard yesterday and earlier today. One of Bangladesh's competitive advantages lies in its workforce. It's a big country, many people, but also a large workforce, very committed and to some extent also largely trained. Highly motivated, offering businesses a valuable resource that can drive growth and productivity. Then thirdly, as an investor, you can rely on a pool of good quality advisors. We have our own team in Bangladesh. It's a great asset, so to say, for us to have that team locally present. It can help us, it can help others to be active as an investor in Bangladesh. Fourthly, Bangladesh is a nation with a large local market. It's having a rapid growing number of consumers and therefore ample opportunities to develop and invest. The country's economy is transitioning into a middle income status, signaling a positive, promising future for those who invest wisely. So in summary, impact investing in Bangladesh presents the chance to achieve good financial returns while creating meaningful changes in the value chains that we invest in, benefiting small producers and generating decent employment opportunities for many, including young people and women. But despite these advantages, Bangladesh also faces challenges that some investors are concerned about. To name a few, the bureaucratic and sometimes unclear regulatory framework is an administrative hurdle that slows down investments and sometimes also scares off investors. There are uncertainties about capital repatriation and exits, especially for equity investments. Amongst others, this is related to the informalcy of the economy and the relatively large number of small businesses lacking compliance, not strong enough to also fit that regulatory environment. Another hurdle is the negative portrayal of Bangladesh, for instance in the media, that can influence investors' perceptions and dampen their interest. And we also experience that if we try to find co-investors in our deals. Finally, as you will notice also here, there's a lot of focus on the garment industry, while other sectors, for instance like agriculture, are quite underdeveloped. We discussed about it this morning, but also in the morning we heard about the big roadmap that is still needed to further develop the agricultural sector. This limits opportunities for investors that want to look into other sectors than the garment industry. In conclusion, impact investing is still in its infancy stage, and several hindrances need to be overcome. As an investment company, we choose to focus on the opportunities, and these opportunities are really to create impact and contribute to the sustainability agenda of the country. That is precisely what convinces us to be active in Bangladesh, and what also should convince others to be active in Bangladesh. Because despite its rapid growth, Bangladesh faces significant social challenges. As an investor, your involvement can make a substantial difference in the lives of millions, and you can help the country meet its main challenges. To mention a few of these challenges, first of all, the cost of climate change. Bangladesh scores high on all sorts of ranking, but also on a ranking of countries most vulnerable to climate change. The country is prone to natural disasters and environmental degradation. Land is shrinking, and there are agri-losses. Bangladesh needs impact investments to help fulfill its nationally determined contributions committed after the Paris Agreement. Relevant investments are, for example, needed in clean, sustainable sources of energy, climate-smart agri-practices, cold chain logistics, and etc. Bangladesh also needs investments through a gender lens. According to the ADB, about 65% of the women are unbanked, and only 7% of SME businesses are women-owned. And women occupy only around 8% of the top-level positions. We know that the business case of investing in gender equality and diversity is clear. To enable a gender-diverse business environment, it is important to invest in women-led and women-focused countries. Last but not least, as discussed yesterday, there are enormous challenges and new opportunities because of the EU legislation on due diligence and reporting, affecting corporates and brands on this side of the world, as well as the producers and suppliers in Bangladesh. Impact investors can support export-oriented Bangladeshi companies to fully embrace sustainability practices as a core strategy of their operations and showcase their ESG contribution in waste, energy reduction, process efficiency, renewable energy, labor standards, and etc. Cost involved are high though, and on the short term, the business case is not always clear, especially not where buyer and supplier relationships are fluctuating constantly. A commitment between brands, investors, and SMEs in a partnership could actually facilitate long-term relationships and ensure investments to become more sustainable. Let me leave it with this. I hope this gave you a good, short outlook into the thinking of an impact investor in Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jaap-Jan. And I think indeed it was very clear and very insightful. And I mean, there's so much to tell, of course, about impact investing. So good to have this quick overview. And maybe to, I now realize that I did not mention it in the beginning, but really to emphasize impact investing for us here on stage is really about investing into measurable social and economic, environmental return with also financial return on the side. So I think that's good to emphasize, to have the clear discussion about it. Now, thank you so much, Jaap-Jan. I also have Erik Parigger of Orange Corners here on stage, and also Willem Grimminck of One to Watch. I really would like to ask the two of you as well to briefly introduce yourself and also the organization, the company that you represent. May I start with you, Erik? You have the mic.
Thank you, Machteld. Thank you very much. And thank you again to Jaap-Jan for setting the scene on the impact investment front. I think that's very useful and important in this session. My name is Erik. I represent a program called Orange Corners. It's a program initiated by the Dutch government in 2016, where we're now active in 17 countries and regions. It's mostly Africa and Middle East focused, and we consider Bangladesh our special exception because it's a force that is to be reckoned with, I guess. And for us, that means that we found the power of Bangladesh so compelling that we were convinced we needed to start our program in Bangladesh as well. Orange Corners delivers three kinds of support. First of all, we work on ecosystem strengthening. So we run a number of projects through our network at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, where Orange Corners is based as well, to help support the entrepreneurial ecosystem. You can think of helping entrepreneurial education, so to ingrain entrepreneurship into the knowledge institutes. You can think of helping financial institutions with their ability to invest in young entrepreneurs as well. Second of all, we run a number of training programs around incubation and acceleration. I hope you're all familiar with the terms. If not, come find me afterwards. It's all technical knowledge here. But we help young entrepreneurs to start and grow their business. And in Bangladesh, we do this in partnership with our local implementing partners, YY Ventures and BYLC. And third and not least, and I think this is also most relevant for this panel, we run an access to finance program that is called the Orange Corners Innovation Fund, which is tied to our training program. It's meant to address what we call the missing middle between sort of the initial funding you get from family and friends and your first bank loan or venture capital, where we help young people access small prototype vouchers and some technical assistance to really build their first access to finance and credit history. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do at Orange Corners.
Great, thank you so much, Erik. Very interesting. And One to Watch, Willem.
Yes.
What is it?
Well, thank you, Machteld, and thank you for having me on the panel. And it's great to see you all here in the audience. My name is Willem. I started One to Watch 10 years ago in Nepal. So my journey starts in Nepal, and I'll talk a little bit how I got engaged with Bangladesh. But the environment you sketched, Jaap-Jan, that's something I learned from Nepal by just living there and going out there and see entrepreneurs and see what they actually need. And if you go there and then you ask them, they say, what's your business doing? How do you want to grow it? What do you need for that? It's capital, because capital is not provided to them. They're too risky for the banks, and they're too small for any other capital provider. So there's a huge gap. For Bangladesh, so that's a number maybe to take in your head, is the finance gap for Bangladesh is $40 billion for SMEs. So if SMEs take a normal growth path, they need $40 billion to get to their targets. So I learned it in Nepal, and we do basically two things. We support companies with business development support, like a sort of consultancy, sort of advisory, to make them ready to invest. Because if you ask them, hey, what are you doing and how do you want to grow, they have this great story and you can follow them for a week long. But at the end of the day, if you want to finance a company, you need to have something on paper, something which we need to analyze. That's our job. We are fund managers, we need to analyze data, we need to understand the risk before we can make an investment. So we really help companies to become ready to invest. The second stage then is to provide them access to capital. And we started in 2010-ish, and I looked up what the Global Impact Investment Network started in 2009. So impact investing is still a new kid on the block in the finance spectrum, and maybe we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So I keep it for here for now. But it's a new discipline. It's a new way of financing companies. And after making these companies ready for investment, we started to provide capital to them with a high risk, but also with an expectation it would deliver impact results. And the way we measured it back then was by the number of people we could employ with the investments we were doing in the company. Later on, we moved to climate, because you can't, as an impact investor, you can't avoid climate these days, and for the right reasons. If you drive through the country, if you see Bangladesh, you see the impact of climate in the country. You name it. That's number 7 of the most climate-effective effective countries. So the $4 billion in investments for Bangladesh would be reduced by the climate damages, which is 1% of GDP in Bangladesh. So that's important. What we're doing in climate is putting solar systems on rooftop. And I invite all the garment factories to come here and talk to me and talk about how you can put solar on your rooftops, because it's easy and it immediately reduces your carbon emissions. Now that's all in Nepal. We moved to Myanmar in 2018, and because we know that the knowledge we have gained in Nepal is replicable in other geographies, and because of our relationship, we also looked at Bangladesh. And I'm a newcomer to Bangladesh, but I'm quite excited to go there.
Yeah, I'll stop you here for now. Yeah, okay. But we'll continue about that. Thanks so much, Willem. Yeah, because Erik, I wanted to come back to you. I mean, you started, I think, a few years ago in Bangladesh, and I remember you started by doing a scoping mission to really get better understanding of the market. So you've also been looking into the different sectors, isn't it, where you can really see acceleration, where you can really see where impact is possible. So could you tell us a little bit, just briefly, about, you know, what type of sectors you think you could invest in best with the maximum impact to achieve?
Definitely, Machteld. Thank you for that question as well. Well, first of all, I think it's important to mention Orange Corners as a program is sector agnostic, meaning we're there for any entrepreneur who would like to grow. And so we're really keen to helping entrepreneurs on their entrepreneurial journey, whatever sector they're from. That being said, we know that entrepreneurs need a lot of technical knowledge in various sectors. So we really try to narrow down some sectoral focus in the countries where we operate, so including Bangladesh. I think, first of all, we need to emphasize here that we would encourage entrepreneurs to focus on those social issues, societal challenges, but also mainly opportunities that are really relevant to the country. In the entrepreneurship field, you often see a lot of copycat behavior. We see a successful startup in Silicon Valley, and we want to become the next Airbnb or the next Uber. And we think that it's really smart and logical to really try to solve societal issues. Yeah. So In Bangladesh, there are a couple of areas that we know, of course. I think currently 83% of the economy is focused on ready-made garments as well. So there's a huge focus there already. There are efforts being placed on diversifying the economy. And some of the areas that we find mainly relevant are agro-food. We see a lot of focus on also imports from other countries when it comes to fruit processing and poultry. And here's a real opportunity to really become self-sufficient in this area and to work more on agro-food. I think renewable energy is another one. Of course, we talked a lot today, and there's another panel upcoming, I think, that relates to climate as well. Of the disaster proneness geographically with the delta that we see in Bangladesh, that there's a huge opportunity to also focus on energy reliability. And lastly, I think waste management is a very important sector. There's a huge urbanization happening in Bangladesh. I think by 2050, Dhaka is predicted to become the third largest city in the world even. Wow. If I'm not mistaken, so correct me if I'm wrong. But these are some areas that we have really highlighted in our ecosystem mapping that we think we would like to focus on in coming years.
Yeah. And where most impact can also be achieved.
Definitely,
yeah.
definitely. Okay. Also in relation to the societal issue front.
Yeah. And then for you, Willem, because like you already emphasized, you're a new kid on the block. So you're new into the Bangladeshi market. Are these also the sectors that you would like to be focusing on more?
There's definitely a lot of overlap. For us as an impact investor and the lens that I have now towards Bangladesh, it would be mostly focused on climate. How can Bangladesh keep their economy growing? And you need the SMEs for that, because soon the SME contribution to the GDP will become more than it is today. So that's the segment. The SME is the segment where we're focusing on. But how can we support the SMEs who can mitigate climate risk or adapt to the climate changes that Bangladesh is already witnessing? And there's definitely a lot of overlap with the sectors that you're calling.
Yeah, great. Before coming to you, Jaap-Jan, because I have another question for you, but first I would like to come back to you, Erik, because I hear from both of you quite some possibilities, opportunities related to climate, to green, to waste, to energy, and obviously a lot more. And actually these are also then related to the RMG sector, which is again a very important topic in this event. I think you're working a lot more with younger entrepreneurs, and the two of you are a little bit working more with like the SME, the middle segment in the market. Looking at the entrepreneurs you're working with as Orange Corners, how do you think that the type of acceleration programs and also the capacity building type of programs you have, that you implement, can really contribute to making these entrepreneurs, these companies more investment ready in order to make them also able to contribute to these SDG goals? Is that something you could tell us a bit more about?
Definitely, Machteld, thank you. No, I think you could consider us today on stage a younger brother of the two gentlemen and the two organizations here. I'm purely talking the organizational front here next to me. No, I think if I could name three things, it would be collaboration, 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 because I think this is so important that we start to take this holistic view of entrepreneurship. It's not about training only, because you can train a young entrepreneur and put them in an ecosystem that might not be as conducive yet to helping them further on their journey. I think Bangladesh is rapidly developing as an economy also. We heard about the middle income status that we know about. But if we look at the ease of doing business, if we look at the Global Entrepreneurship Index, for instance, in 2019, you see that Bangladesh is still ranking 134 out of 137. So apparently it's still very difficult to run and set up a business in Bangladesh. And I think incubators and accelerators can really help in this journey, helping people with building their business. But there's also more they can do in collaborating to help build the entire ecosystem. And I think that needs to involve all parties. We're not only talking the incubators and accelerators here. We're talking about all of you in the room today. We're talking about civil society. We're talking about government. We're talking about private sector, which can really share their knowledge as a big business on various issues, in-kind collaborations with programs like this. We're talking technical expertise, like fabrication labs, where people can really test out their products, build their prototypes. So I think this is all of key importance. One thing that I would really like to emphasize, which we really need to see in the impact investment front, the financial plan is very, very, very important. I think people, planet, profit is of course the main slogan we hear here, but we need to realize that we cannot make profit without people and planet. We really need to have this impact focus in their business, because without people and planet there is no profit to be made. But without profit it also becomes harder to deliver our promise on people and planet. So really help young entrepreneurs with a good socially impactful idea also to build a sound financial model. I think these are of main importance. Maybe as a very last remark, I'm really glad to have everyone in the room here today, to have us here on stage today, because even in the conversations leading up to this panel, I think there's so much more we can even do with Truvalu, with One to Watch, with all of you here, to also build collaborations that go beyond only the players that are already present in Bangladesh, but also anyone who would really like to contribute to this journey. So please seek us out, seek each other out to really build this collaboration.
Thank you so much for saying that, because indeed, just for your information, I think also this Best of Bangladesh event also really brought us together. And it's really a perfect opportunity to meet many more stakeholders in Bangladesh, but also in the Netherlands, and really see, you know, what we can do in a complementary way together. So collaboration, that's what you mentioned. I think collaboration was also mentioned yesterday and also in this morning session. It's definitely key to bring a lot of stakeholders with different specialisms together also in Bangladesh. And I think, I mean, we're talking about investors, but also still there's still budget and there's still funding needed also from NGO side, from governmental side, from foundation side, to really catalyze impact. And that is actually something I wanted to talk to you about, Jaap-Jan, because I mean, you have a lot of experience now in Bangladesh, but also in the other countries. So what kind of opportunities actually do you see in really bringing together the private sector, the impact investors, and also the development agencies to really catalyze this impact? So what is needed? So please, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And indeed, I would say this is all about balancing costs, risks, and returns. And from the conversation so far, you already have learned that costs are high and risks are high. And why is that? There is a very high level of informalcy in the sector. Companies are mostly not yet investable, so to say. It's our experience that it can take more than a year actually between getting to know a company and allowing it through our first assessment gates and finally doing an investment in a company, because there's so many not only bureaucratic steps to be taken, that's another hurdle, I mentioned that one as well, but also to actually help the company formalize and become ready for that next level of growth, and also to receive foreign direct investments. And so I mean, you can imagine that is a cost factor, which is basically you're not able to cost that into the business model of your investment, right? So that needs to be kind of catered for in certain ways. And there are all sorts of mechanisms nowadays available, impact-linked finance, and etc., that would cater for those costs. There are NGOs working in the ecosystems, improving the investment readiness of businesses. Erik already alluded to that with their investment readiness activities. These are costs that I feel could be also supported by these philanthropic funders. Another aspect, obviously, is the risks associated. I mentioned some of the risks. Some are risks that are just kind of logical to our work. Some are risks that are more related directly to the dynamics in Bangladesh. And again, either interest subsidies or first loss guarantee mechanisms would greatly help to convince impact investors to come. And then, indeed, balancing that cost, risks, and return perspective, so to say, or the balance. If that would happen, then indeed we talk about catalytic funding, because you mentioned two types of players, the philanthropic funders and the development agencies, and I wanted to add one other one, and that is obviously the local capital providers. Because it's important that we talk about this, but I think in the end also local capital providers need to step into these spheres and also become very active in the field of impact investing.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think what I also learned yesterday and also this morning, I mean, also the importance of university and knowledge institutions, besides the ones we have already covered, I think is key in these kind of multi-stakeholder settings. So looking at time, before I want to open up the floor also for the rest of you, maybe just one last question for you, Willem. Just if we zoom out a little bit now to an even higher level, really the eco-international systems level. I mean, you have quite some experience also in other countries, especially also in Nepal, of course. Could you say us a little bit more about the regional and global impact investing knowledge and the networks and the resources that are out there that would really help create this leverage at the level of Bangladesh? What would be needed? What is key?
Yeah, thank you, Machteld. Okay, where to start? Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, and keep it short.
Yeah, I definitely think Bangladesh can benefit from the knowledge and the techniques, the instruments that are there globally on impact investing, right? And to build on your points, Jaap-Jan, because you said about collaboration with the NGOs and and the investors, I think that's right, because 10 years ago, it was donations, right? You give money, and I still think there's a lot of money given to Bangladesh. There was this Lourdes Foundation who does 250 million to Bangladesh, and only a small size of that cake is into real investments. So what impact investing actually started doing is just moving from donations to investments. And on that continuum, there are several flavors of risk and return instruments and approaches. And those are tested around the world. But still, impact investing is quite new. So if you started impact investing 10 years ago, before you get your first returns and you report your first successes, you've been 5, 6, 7 years down the line. So there are examples out there. There's a lot of testing out there. There's a lot of data out there. So Bangladesh can benefit from that. But then it still needs to enter into the country, right? So if you pick something up in India or from Nepal or Myanmar or Africa, how do you bring that in the country? And I thought about that, and usually what you see is a multiple focus fund, so an impact fund, not purely for profit, not giving away money, coming into Bangladesh, taking a little bit more risk that other investors won't do to invest in SMEs. You can do it with a fund that says, okay, I cover multiple countries and I add Bangladesh to it. But if you look at those funds, they pay minimum attention to Bangladesh because it's often a more difficult country than the other countries that they also cover. For example, India. And India has more experience with impact investing. So what you really need to do to bring that knowledge, to leverage that international knowledge, which is limited, right, into Bangladesh is do it with teams on the ground and use the workforce, because Bangladesh has an excellent workforce. There are excellent professionals there. You talked about that as well, Jaap-Jan. Bring a dedicated fund to Nepal with models that are tested.
Bangladesh.
To Bangladesh, and use the local workforce with the understanding of the dynamics in the country, and start applying those techniques. And I think Nepal, Bangladesh, it needs a roadmap. It needs a roadmap on that continuum, start from donations towards commercial capital, because we need to understand as well that with commercial capital there is volume, right? If you want to cover that 40 billion I was talking about, which is a finance gap for SMEs, that's where the volume is. But you need to start with more risk appetite towards the donor venture philanthropy side of the spectrum.
Okay, clear, at least to me. I think we have about 10 minutes left. or maybe a little bit less. So I really would like to open up the floor to this audience. Let me see if I go stand there, because I can't see you that well. But please, if there are any questions from the audience, and I can imagine there are urgent questions you would like to raise to our three guests. Sir, please. I think there's another mic coming. And please tell us your name as well when you raise the question.
My name is Panos Sofianos. I'm coming in from Greece, the country of cotton. We're producing cotton, strange, in Europe still. And I was wondering if there is any idea how this waste could be managed worldwide. We're talking for sure about a country that is deeply involved in cotton processing in various stages, finishing, producing, and so on. We all know that there is a very heavy impact in that. Up to the moment, we're talking only about recycling. But recently, I heard that there are many, many other ways. I heard today in the news that Cotton Incorporated is trying to manage the microfibers that come out from cotton, which is a small detail that we have never understood how important it is, this micro thing in our lives, on the whole world. So my question is, do you have something specific to mention about the how should I say? Yes, it's to invest in this very delicate issue. What should be for you the idea? Any news about that?
Who could I give the floor? Is there any? Yeah?
Yes, thank you, Panos. A very specific question, I will say, in a very broad panel on impact investment, of course. Ευχαριστώ. Personally, and I'm going to answer this question personally, I believe in the power of young people to solve a lot of these issues. That doesn't mean I don't believe in the power of everyone here today to solve these issues, but what we do see is a lot of innovative spirit coming out of the kind of startups that we see coming up in various countries, including Bangladesh. I will say that a lot of the countries, what they have in common, and this is the same for Greece, there's an enormously young population. I think, bringing this back to Bangladesh very short, I think over 60% is under the age of 35. Let that sink in. Over 60% is under the age of 35. Over 45% of Bangladesh is under the age of 25. It's an enormously young population. And I think it's a really smart move to work with a lot of innovative business models. There are projects like business challenges, hackathons you might have heard of, where we ask these sectors that are dealing with these issues, like cotton producers, like cotton processing companies, to set these challenges, to ask for solutions coming from the market. Well, I referred again to young people. It's because I work with them daily, so maybe not a surprising answer from my side, but I think we need everyone to contribute to these solutions by way of, for instance, in a project like a hackathon, to deliver solutions to address these problems. So I'm really glad you raised a problem here, because that gives an opportunity to anywhere here in the room to come address this problem. So maybe there's someone who can address this issue already. And then
I
please
already
stand
see
up.
that Tawhid Salam, that he would like to answer to that. So could the mic please? Oh, you already have the mic. Great.
Hello, sir. My name is Tawhid. I'm a fashion designer and a textile engineer. What I understand is the combat oil you were talking about is the small microfibers. Yes. Yeah. Yes. As far my understanding, like this is super absorbent, and there are a lot of products we can make, including tissue towel and sanitary napkins and other things. Regarding this kind of thing, we are, CHP is specialized with cotton and jute mixing, blending, cotton pineapple fiber blending, and cotton banana fiber blending. So if you may communicate with us, we will find a solution for that. Thank you.
Great, that sounds really good. That's already a good connection made. Sir, please, in the front here.
Thank you. This is Monwar, and I'm working as the head of sustainability at Team Group. so one of the biggest RMG conglomerates in Bangladesh. So in Bangladesh, I have seen that whenever there is any offerings in terms of like impact investment, I saw that the SMEs, they found it really, they are kind of lost in translation. They don't know how to do, because the due diligence process that requires to follow is really very cumbersome for them. So while you are coming up with offerings in terms of impact investment, you should also look into this particular issue, because we don't have, in SMEs, we don't have that capable people to, go for so many things. So I think if you can start with something and come up with some good case studies, and if that can be communicated in a broader scale, I think that would be good, because sometimes I worked with BGMEA, so I also handle few of these initiatives, and I have seen most of the cases, SMEs, they fear of this cumbersome process. So if that can be eased, and if this can be made easy for them, I think the impact investment will be able to create more impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much for an excellent remark. And I think actually, Jaap-Jan, this is definitely something you can comment on.
Yeah, thanks for raising the point. I think that you're very right, and that's also our experience. Recently, we did a project with various banks, and we worked with unbankable SMEs to bring them to the bank for the first time ever. And it's quite interesting, actually, to realize that these are not very small SMEs. They are relatively larger SMEs. They already have quite a turnover, and still they've never gone to the bank, because there's a reluctancy. They kind of stay in the levels of informalcy, but there's also, indeed, they're lost in translation. They don't know what they're up to, so to say. And so we should tell the stories more. I mean, listen to Tawhid. We are proud that we work with Tawhid and with the innovative capacity of CHP. And we should tell more of those stories. But there is also, and that's my point of the costs associated, we should do more in, say, deal origination, in creating deal flows of potential SMEs that we and others can invest in, by doing that kind of pre-competitive work before even the investors can step in, educating, if you like, the entrepreneurs for this type of work.
Thank you. I see in the back, I see another question, and then here in the front, and then I think we need to round up. So.
Yeah, hello, this is Dipto. I am a startup founder. The name of my startup is AgroShift. So I was listening to the session, and you were telling that the era of impact investing as charity has gone. Now you are looking for more sustainable ways of lending this, of doing this. So my question is, if the impact investment as charity era has gone, so the role of non-governmental NGOs should be shifted to some other organizations. And in this dimensional change, where do you see the tech startups from emerging countries like Bangladesh, where we are attracting commercial investments, because obviously there are something for them, but we are also generating massive impact in the lives of people. But I think somehow, if whether the story is not being heard to your platforms, or we are not very good at articulating those, so there may be a gap. So how tech startups can enter into this space of impact investing, if you can give your feedbacks?
Who would like to answer? Willem?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. We talked in your shop here, and I think you have an amazing business, a very clever business model. And for me, as an impact investor, it's great to understand that entrepreneurs like you are out there. But if I look at the number of deals venture capitalists have done over the last 10 years, that's about 80. And that's very, very limited for a country like Bangladesh. I think there must be more, and it's very difficult to estimate, but there must be more than 1 million companies, SMEs out there. But if you're going to look for impact investors, it's hard to find one, because there are just not so many. You came across an investor, and there are a few out there. I'm not sure if they call themselves impact investors, but they are none. not many at least. So that's why I'm saying we need to build a roadmap for Bangladesh to attract more impact investors to the country. I mean, I'm on this panel and I'm not even having an investment in in Bangladesh. That also says something about the state of impact investing in the country. I'm excited about Bangladesh, by the way, because I see the drive and the motivation and the enthusiasm among Bangladeshis, among its entrepreneurs, to let themselves heard in the world. And I think that story, that narrative, that need to be built. So there's impact investors. They perceive a lot of risks when they look at the country, and you can't take that away easily. But I think that narrative about Bangladesh that needs to change. Those risks need to be balanced with the opportunities. Need to be balanced with the beauty and the resources of the country that can stand out compared to other countries. So if I would have to build a roadmap and look at milestones on that roadmap, companies like yours is a milestone. Let the world know that entrepreneurs like you are there, that there's an opportunity there, and that you can buy impact for every dollar you put in companies like yourself. So tell the world you're there, and wake them up for Bangladesh.
Thank you so much, Willem. I saw you had a question as well, isn't it? Is there another mic? Yeah, there's a question here, but I don't think you have a mic. Oh, it's coming. They're running.
Thank you. Hi. It's Lisa Domini from Sustainable Apparel Coalition. Thank you to all three of you for very passionate presentations there. I'm going to ask a question, and I'm hoping I'm going to get round to sort of the right answer that I'm looking for. You talked about your criteria model, looking at costs, looking at risks, looking at returns, and I want to focus in on that returns piece. And your impact investing is obviously based on factories actually being able to produce the returns that you're looking for. And a lot of that is dependent on the business that they are receiving and the business from the brands and the retailers that they are receiving and the continuity of that and surety of that. And I'd just love to understand what conversations that you're having with brands, with retailers, if any, and also if, you know, there's also another off the stage conversation of how we could help facilitate that potentially, but I'd love to know what your conversations with brands are.
Yeah, thanks for raising that point. And so generally speaking, not specifically for Bangladesh, but generally speaking, I can say that we're very interested in those kind of tripartite conversations with buyers somewhere in the world that commit themselves to a producer for a longer run. A longer period of time, and us as an investor actually stepping into that relationship and providing the means necessary in country to grow the capacity, grow the efficiency, grow whatever is needed to kind of foster the partnership between producer and buyer. That is something we are very interested in. I must say that for Bangladesh that is until now quite limited actually. Yeah, what I see is that also that buyers, there's sometimes even internal competition within the buyers, right? Which division of the buyer from what country is actually buying this specific product from this country, and that internal competition already, yeah, is difficult for producers to deal with, and would also kind of hinder such a tripartite partnership. So I think that this is something that if you could support that, it would be very welcome indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this question. I see another kind of collaboration popping up. So looking at time. I don't know. I think I really need to round up now. Huh? Yeah, I'm looking at the organizers. I'm sorry, but we'll continue afterwards. I really need to finish this session, and it's really exciting to see that there's so much interest and there's so much more food for thought, and especially also so much more food for action. I'm not going to summarize my key takeaways because I'm really looking at the manager saying, okay, we need to continue with the next panel session. But I would like to finish by saying that we really want to thank the organizers for having this panel session. Also, of course, the ambassador of Bangladesh here in the Netherlands. I would like to thank our 3 panelists, and I really would like to thank you all, because I think it was great that we have this mixed audience and that there are already opportunities for further continuation of our conversation. So we are really looking forward to it. And as said also by the 3 of you, and I would like to repeat it, please look up for us, because we are very much eager into multi-stakeholder collaborations and seeing what we can do in a complementary way. So thank you all, and yeah, that was it.